So you're thinking about moving to Houston, Texas, but you want to know the highs and the lows, the good, the bad, the ugly, the pros and the cons before you make that decision. Well, I think that is a fantastic idea. And in today's video, we're actually going to be discussing the pros and the cons of Houston, Texas before you move here. Now, the first thing you should know about Houston is that the population is about 2.3 million people, which makes it like the fourth largest city population-wise in the US. Now, the next thing you should know is that the greater Houston area has a population close to 7 million, and that's expected to continue to grow in the coming years. In fact, I recently saw some data that said it should grow by another 2 million people in the next 2 to 3 years. So that's going to be a huge increase of people. Now, if you want to know everything there is to know about Houston, Texas, and the surrounding areas, then go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to my channel and ring that notification bell so you'll be the first to know what's happening in the Houston housing market. Now, I get phone calls, text messages, and emails from people like you every single day. So if you're considering moving to Houston in the next 9 days or 90 days, then go ahead and give me a call, shoot me a text, or send me an email so I can help you make a smooth move to Houston.
Here's a fun fact for you about Houston, Texas. The Houston Astrodome was actually once touted as the 8th wonder of the world for being the world's first domed stadium and for being the first air-conditioned stadium.
Every Houstonian's biggest pro that they're going to give you for Houston, Texas is going to be the Houston Medical Center, which is this area behind me. It's home to several hospitals, including, you can see up here, Children's Hospital, you've got Baylor, you've got Memorial Hermann, and you have a personal favorite of mine, which is MD Anderson. Now, MD Anderson means a lot to me because I'm actually a cancer survivor, and I had my treatment done right here in Houston over at MD Anderson back in 2017. And I can personally attest for the exceptional service and the professionalism that they exude there at MD Anderson. Everything from making you feel extremely comfortable from the first moment you walk in the door, through your checkups, consultations, everything along the way makes MD Anderson, in my book, top notch. And actually, around the world, MD Anderson is known as the leading hospital when it comes to cancer research and prevention. Now, a little bit more about the medical center. It actually is sitting on just over 1,300 acres of land, which is all dedicated to, the medical field. This actually makes it the largest medical center in the entire world. So as I said, a huge fan favorite for all of us Houstonians. And you know I was going to say it, a huge pro for Houston is the economy. We have one of the strongest and most robust economies in the entire world. And back in the 80s, Houston was heavily invested in oil and gas. And with the big oil bust that came in the 80s, Houston really learned its lesson and diversified itself so much that we now have a very robust economy here in Houston. There are over 80 different businesses call Houston home for their headquarters. We've got 22 Fortune 500 companies and one Global 500 company. You probably guessed it, it's ExxonMobil. It's actually ranked number 7 in the world. Now, some of those Fortune 500 companies that call Houston homes are places like Phillips 66. We've got ConocoPhillips. We've got Baker Hughes. You've got the Synergy Energy. You've got Halliburton. We've got Hewlett Packard Enterprises. We even have Energy Waste Management and CenterPoint Energy. But it doesn't stop there. We even have Group 1 Automotive, KRB, which is an engineering and construction services company those of you who don't know. And we have Academy Sports and Outdoor. So as I said, we have a very strong economy here in Houston, which is why it's made the list of a very strong pro for this city. Now, another one of those pros for Houston, Texas are going to be the parks. There are a lot of notable parks here in the Houston area, and I'm over at one of them right now, which is the Eleanor Tinsley Park. You can see it runs along actually Buffalo Bayou right here. Makes it a very, very enjoyable walk. You can do it on your lunch break, you can do it after hours, really whenever you find the time for it. But it's just fantastic. You have the lofts right back here on Sabine Street. You've got downtown Houston. So that's actually what makes this one of the most popular parks, is going to be that beautiful skyline that you see right behind me, along with the bayou. Now, you notice if you look down at the bayou that it's, well, you can't tell from up here, but it's high right now. And the reason for that is we've had a lot of rain in recent days. But that's one of the reasons why we have these bayous here in Houston, is to help with this excess water that we sometimes get. So it's one of the things that helps with, we'll say one of the negatives of Houston is going to be the flooding, typically from hurricanes, but also whenever we have a heavy rainfall. Had a lot of infrastructure and whatnot done to help with that, but the 7 bayous of Houston definitely help with it. Now, some of the other parks in Houston that I personally really like are Discovery Green, which is over by the Georgia Brown Convention Center. A lot of activities go on there, including during the winter. They have an outdoor ice rink. You've got Memorial Park, which is absolutely massive. You've got soccer fields, you've got restaurants, you've got walking trails. They recently put in a couple of land bridges for the animals and the wildlife that they have there, along with walking trails that go over it, so you're not having to cross the street anymore. You've got George Bush Reservoir, but you have the park there, as well as the Addicks Reservoir Park, which is just on the north side of I-10 from the Bush Park. But you know, Houston has no shortage of parks inside the city or in some of its surrounding areas for all of those nature enthusiasts and anyone who's just looking to get outside and enjoy nature. Now, another one of those cons for Houston is going to be the heat and humidity. Houston is world famous for how hot and humid it can get here. Now, there's a couple of different reasons for it. Our proximity to the equator, our proximity to the Gulf of Mexico, which, you know, brings with that one the hurricanes that we get. Now, the hurricanes are typically restricted to hurricane season, which is June to December, early December of each year. But I mean, like I was saying, back to the heat, it gets hot here. And one of the reasons why, it's something called urban heat island effect. And essentially what that is all of the buildings, all the asphalt, all the cement, it absorbs that heat from the sun, and then it re-emits it back into the city, into the atmosphere, making it hotter and hotter, especially during those summer months. And it's important to note that even though the city of Houston has that effect and gets really hot, the more rural areas are actually going to be a lot cooler because they have, you know, more trees, more green spaces, more grass, and not a lot of that cement and those larger buildings. Now, another thing to note is that Houston has what's called flood zones, right? So we know if you're in a 100-year floodplain or a 500-year floodplain, or an area that's not prone to flooding really at all. And this is important to note if you're moving here because of all the hurricanes and the heavy rainfall that we can have. So it's definitely something to consider if you're weighing your options of moving here, because it is a con for the Houston area. And just to touch base again on that big con for Houston, which is the flooding. It's important to note that some of the contributing factors to that flooding is the flat topography that we have here in the Houston area. Also, we have very, very clay-rich soil, which is horrible for absorbing water. Add on top of that the fact that we are so close to the Gulf of Mexico and we have hurricane season here. All of that adds to the perfect storm for flooding. But it's important to note that Houston itself, along with the surrounding suburbs, have done a lot to mitigate those issues associated with flooding. So give me a call or shoot me a text and I'd be happy to give you more details on that when you're considering making your move to Houston, Texas. Hey, in today's video, we covered several pros and cons of living in Houston, Texas. Now, if you still want to move here to Houston, Texas, and you're planning to do so in the next 9 days or 9 months, reach out, give me a call, shoot me a text, or send me an email so I can help you make a smooth move to Houston. Now, if you have lived here before, or if you are living here now, I'd love for you to leave a comment and let me know some of the things that you love doing in Houston, whether it be some of your favorite restaurants or some of your favorite bars. And also leave a comment on some of your recommended activities for some of those people who are planning on making that move to Houston. And until next time, I hope to show you around town.